Monday night. Look who's in the house. John Lund. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by, well, a lot of people. But first, Pig and a Pickle. Let's go. We're talking Niners. Another special teamer in the fold. Yes! All right, Monday night after Warrior basketball on a Monday night. Warriors losers tonight at home. A bad loss to the Denver Nuggets, 114-105. No Jokic, no Murray, no Brown, no matter. Nuggets come to San Francisco and say, we'll take one, and they did. 114-105, and the Warriors are not perfect, or they weren't perfect before with Jimmy, but they have only lost one time with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. They lose tonight. Steph Curry looked kind of old. His knee kind of looked like it buckled on him a little bit late. And, what can you say? Warriors just didn't play well enough in this game. Denver beat them, but we are not here to talk about Warriors. We'll get into a little bit of the Warriors in the back end. But we're here to talk about the Niners because, man, the biggest happening in the history of Niner football is to be announced tonight as Siran Neal. And I'm getting word that his plane has landed. He is playing now. But Siran Neal gets a 2-year contract with the Niners, according to Cameron Wolf of the NFL Network. Neal spent last season with the Dolphins. He played with the Bills for the first 6 years of his career. He's an outstanding special teamer, a 5th-round pick out of Jacksonville State by Buffalo in 2018, and he's been a mainstay, on Buffalo's secondary depth chart as a special teamer. He's played at least 57% of his team's special team snaps in every season of his career. Majority of the time last year playing with the Dolphins, 431 snaps in 2024, 373 of those on special teams. So very much a special teamer, former 5th-round pick, as I said, with Buffalo, played on the kick coverage unit there, had 11 tackles and 2 passes defensed with Buffalo. So another special teams move. The 49ers, to Trey Tomlinson, Trey Brown, the Luke Gifford, linebacker. He's a special teamer. So they're really going big on special teams in a way, in a vacuum. Great, great special teams move. You got a new special teams coach. You're trying to break this trend of the Niners being a bottom third special teams unit, and maybe, heck, dare to dream that they could potentially be like, I don't know, how about a top half of the league or a top third of the league special team unit? So they're making the kinds of moves that, on the margins, let's just say. But this is a house without a roof, and this is a home that has no front door. And there's a gigantic sinkhole in the driveway. And, so sorry if I'm not celebrating this, but that's the reality. They have monumental holes in other areas, but in a vacuum, hey, you know what? They had a bad special teams unit. They need to improve their special teams. They have a new special teams coach, and now they're adding, they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're adding some guys who they think can really help them be not just good, but maybe great on special teams. I'm all for that. I'm just not for that instead of offense and defense. And so far, that's what we've gotten for the most part. I think we got a couple good defensive backs that I like, and I like Pinnock. I like Grant. I like the Mac Jones signing. Demarcus Robinson's not bad. I didn't love it, but I don't hate it. The rest of it's a kind of a Where are you on the Niner offseason, Johnny?
Well, we've already talked about it at length, the guys that they've lost, and we knew a lot of these guys. And if anybody did any kind of you don't even have to do a deep dive. A lot of the guys that they lost just weren't very good. They were good name guys, but they weren't very good. But then what they've done in response, like you said, Weeks is a long snapper. Gifford is a special teamer. Grant is a special teamer. Pinnock, don't put him in coverage or he's going to be Devondre Campbell chasing guys down the field. And then we just heard tonight another special teamer. So look, I'm with you. I'm all for making the special teams better, but it's all they seem to do, because if you think about it, Luke Farrell is a blocking tight end. That means he's going to play special teams. Everybody that I'm looking at, Patrick Taylor is a third or a fourth running back. He would play special teams. Trey Brown from the Seahawks, who came over from the Seahawks, who's injured, by the way, but he's either a fourth or a fifth corner. That means he's playing special teams. So, like, every player we will not have bad special teams this year. It's going to be special teams, special teams, special teams. But the biggest problem on special teams last year was what? The kicker. And he's still here. So it's like you've made all these special teams moves. And the main reason your special teams were ass last year was Jake Moody. And he's still here. So it's like, hey, that's great that you're putting all these special teams guys on and they need to be better. And we know the momentum changing plays that they had last year on special teams. And that's great. I'm for addressing it to a certain point. But what we're starting to see is, and I know the Dre Greenlaw story came out from Schefter today, so I know we're going to discuss that. But it's like all these deals are not big deals in and of themselves, but they start adding up. And really what Greenlaw's deal was a 1 year, $11 million deal. You sure you couldn't come up with like 12 or 13 to pay Dre when that of everybody that you lost in this offseason, that's the most irreplaceable player. And every nickel and dime that you're spending on your 19 special teams players that you signed this offseason, and Mac Jones and Kyle Juszczyk and all those other guys, easily would have added up to one Dre Greenlaw, which I'd rather have. So that's all I see.
The Dre Greenlaw Broncos contract specifics are out. 3 years, $31.5 million base value, $11.5 million fully guaranteed.
Yeah, so it's a 1 year deal.
$2 million more next March.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically the practicality of the deal. It's 1 year and $11.5 million. So now the $11.5 million is probably $2 or $3 million over what I wanted to pay, but it's free agency. I think you'd almost have to expect to pay $2 or $3 million more, but that's sometimes you pay a lot more. $2 or $3 million more is nothing in the grand scheme of things for a player that's the heart and soul of your team.
That one I don't get.
Cap hits this year of $5.8 million for this year. 11.1 in 26, 13.1 in 27. I'll say this. I understand why everybody's got to have a budget, and I understand the desire. Believe me, I understand personnel enough to know that you always got to, in a cold reality, you always have to think of what's coming next, and younger, cheaper, faster. That's the reality of
if you had one, right? I mean, the only issue I have, and again, I do not have an issue with most of the players that were left. And you and I both know, because we were down there for a lot of it, Ward was never going to come back. His wife was PTSD. She was not coming back. Hufanga hasn't been good since 22. I don't have a problem.
No problem with that.
Floyd, if all that people have to look at is the other 600 snaps, other than the 8.5 sacks he got, everybody gets so enamored with sacks. The other 600 snaps, he was the worst run defender in all of the NFL, and he weighs 240 pounds. That's not a loss at the edge. I mean, we can go on and on. Malik Collins
is a non-factor outside of the sacks.
Malik Collins is not a loss. We can go on down the line, but or in Juszczyk's case, and we can get into that, they already had him replaced with Luke Farrell. They already had Hufanga replaced with Malik Mustafa. They already had Ward replaced with Renardo Green. So they did a good job actually in replacing a lot of these guys that they didn't want to overpay for. But there's no one on the roster to replace Dre Greenlaw. Not on the field, not off the field, not as Fred Warner's best buddy, not as you pointed out, an energy type of a guy. There's no one on this roster. Don't give me Curtis Robinson off a knee. I saw D Winters. I saw Jalen Graham. So now you have to dip back into, hey, we're gonna have to go to the draft. Well, the same thing. I mean, the Jordan Mason thing blows my freaking mind. You got a guy coming off an Achilles. Well, we'll just go to the draft. Well, you go to the draft with an offensive tackle. You go to the draft with an offensive guard. You go to the draft with the edge. You go to the draft with an interior defensive lineman. Now you need a linebacker. Now you need a backup running back. I think you need a free safety. I think you need another corner. Like, you got 11 picks. I get it. You're not going to nail 11. Okay. And it just it's starting to make my head hurt because I defended the team to a certain extent when it came to the players that they let go because I understood it. And I tried to explain it to people who were freaking out over the name value, but the actual production wasn't there. I had no problem with it. But like you said, to have this latest guy be their fifth special teams player, he's going to end up on special teams like all these guys. And I know what they're going to say at the beginning of the year. Well, he might be able to play another position. Look, Richie Grant, who I liked coming out, has proven with Atlanta he's not a safety. He's purely a special teams player. These guys the same way. Gifford, the linebacker, played 200 plus snaps just because of injuries last year for Tennessee, who is the worst team in football. He's not a linebacker. He's not replacing Dre Greenlaw. So I don't want to be negative because I look at it and I say I understand what they're doing. I understand the financial reset. I understand the players they let go. But the players that they are replacing them with time after time after time are head scratchers, man. They did every one of them.
Well, I mean, this is what the problem. If we made the food comparison, the guys that are walking out the door are entrees, and the guys that are walking in the door are starters. They're samplers. They're like a side of fries. They're like like sides. So you lost your 5 entrees and you brought in 3 sides, and you can't pretend that that's 5 entrees. So even though I agree with you, I think most Niner fans agree with you, Hufanga, to me, the big one is Greenlaw, and just the fact that we now see that he was affordable. They should have stretched.
Well, I always thought, because you knew this too, it is what I had heard was they wanted to go 1 year, $8-9 million. But then the night before, when Ernest Jones signed with Seattle, and that was about 12-13 a year, and we haven't seen the breakdowns on that. And then when our guy Sherwood, who we wanted from the Jets, signed, and when Nick Bolton signed, it blew everything out of the water as far as the AAV was concerned. But then when you saw the 3 years, and went, well, the Niners are never going to go 3 years. But then it comes out, as all these contracts do, all these contracts are funny money. So it comes out, Krug, that it's 1 year. I'm sorry, Jed, but you could go 1-15. Like, you could have gone, and I don't buy this. I heard what Schefter said on the Denver radio station today. He said, they were speculating maybe he didn't want to come back. You're telling me he didn't want to come back and play with his best friend, Fred Warner? Didn't want to play with the 49ers? I don't buy that for one second.
The only team he's ever played for.
Right. I think what they did was they didn't go to the number, and he was pissed. And you know him. You talk to him all the time. He's emotional. And if Denver gave him $1 million more, which to most NFL players is not a ton, to Dre Greenlaw and his emotions, he felt disrespected, I guarantee, by that number, and said, you know what? $1 million, $500,000, whatever the case may be, he was going to Denver on principle alone. And that's what they did. I'm speaking with 99% probability that they shorted him on the contract. And you're telling me that you can give Kyle Juszczyk, who you already replaced, 2 and 8, which isn't a ton, but that's $4 million or so. One of these million special teamers that you got for a couple $1 million, but you shorted Dre Greenlaw, who of all the guys that you lost, that's the guy that you don't have a replacement for. You don't have a replacement for him on the roster, and you shorted him by a couple $1 million, and that's why he's in Denver. I'm sure that's the case, because you know him as well as I do. He's an emotional guy, and if he got less, he would have went to Denver. That's just how it was.
I think it's probably the way they handled it, because, I mean, look, months ago, him and his wife were having a going away party. You know what I mean? So it's like, obviously the initial offer was probably super low, if there was one.
Right.
So, it's like, I don't know what the eventual offer was, but whatever. I mean, you just.
But didn't you ask him the question? I thought it was you in the locker room who asked him the question. It was around Christmas time, and you said to him, "What do you want for Christmas?" And he said, and he gave you the money thing. I don't remember what he said, but he said something like money or something like that. And I could have sworn it was you asked the question, and you knew that. And he's coming off the Achilles. I get some of the reluctance, but if you look at the Denver deal and you see that it's basically a 1 year deal. And maybe the 49ers wouldn't give him the funny money so he could at least have his pride, whatever the case may be. I don't see a replacement for Dre Greenlaw. And now you got to dip into the draft, and you're not going to take an off-ball linebacker at 11, not named Patrick Willis. So who are you going to go get? Like, everybody's like, oh, okay, go get Campbell, the kid from Alabama. But you need an offensive lineman. You need a defensive. Like, linebacker should be a place where you can get a Warner in the 3rd and a Greenlaw in the 5th. But they don't have depth there. So they got forced, even though they wanted to cut this year, they got forced into saying we got to bring Greenlaw back. Because everybody else, of all those guys that we just discussed, they have somebody in-house that can replace them, except for Greenlaw. They have no one.
Well, I mean, it's an exceptional day 3 linebacker draft, but I mean, the hope was that you had Dre there to kind of introduce the this is the standard, this is the caliber, this is the energy, this is the devotion, this is the commitment, show the young guys what this thing would be and why they wouldn't do that for 1 year. But, there's been a clear belt tightening here.
Yeah.
Kev tweeted this out, so I shared the screen. He says, we can sit here and applaud or criticize the 49ers moves or lack thereof, but at the end of the day, they still have to fill out a 53-man roster. We're reaching the point where many of those spots will have to come from the draft. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, except that it puts even more pressure on this class to deliver. Letting veterans walk and avoiding big signings is fine in theory, but we won't truly know how the strategy plays out until we see how the rookies perform. I mean, bottom line is, it's well said by the kid. I would say, ultimately, it's like it could be a great thing if you kick ass in the draft. Like if there's a bunch of great day 3 linebackers, if you get them and they all gel and stuff, yeah, it could be incredible. But what are the odds that they're going to hit like that? I mean, it's just, we'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful, but they've set themselves up for a situation where they have 11 picks. If they get 6 good starters out of the draft, that would be amazing. And it probably isn't going to be enough. So that's why I'm a little bummed right now, is because I know the reality of the draft and I know the miss rate. We did this project one time when we were in the Canadian League of going through and checking the failure rate of the draft. And there's a failure rate. That's why you can't trade players for one pick. You have to trade players for multiple picks because it's bites of the apple, and there's just gonna be some missteps along the way. So they've now put themselves in a spot where I kind of think you need 2 defensive tackles, maybe 3 if you're really looking for somebody who could like rush interior as well, because your D line's just decimated. You need at least 2 edge rushers, 2 guys that can play the edge. So that's probably right there. 5. You need 5 picks on your defensive line. Okay, you need at least a linebacker for sure, 1, probably 2. You need maybe a free safety. I kind of like Richie Grant. We'll see what he is. I don't know who's the answer at free safety. They're obviously still looking around, but they need a free safety. They need another significantly good corner with size and ability, like really good. They need a receiver who can run. They need another tight end who's like more of like the future tight end. They'd be crazy if they don't get themselves a running back or 2. This is one of the greatest running back drafts ever. So I don't know. I mean, that to me, they need 15 to 18 players if they're really going to be like, and they need to have some crazy once in a lifetime kind of draft if they think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I think they're at. And I'm trying to be optimistic. I mean, do you see any scenario where they could be a Super Bowl contender next year?
They just have to have a lot of luck. Everybody has to come back healthy, and they just have to have a ton of luck. But look, I have no doubt that they'll have a nice draft because these guys deserve the benefit of the doubt, and they've nailed the Fred Warners in the 3rd, and the Kittles in the 5th, and the Greenlaws in the 5th, and Brock in the 7th, and John Jennings, and we could go on the line. They've done it, but the toughest thing to do in sports is once you've done it, do it again. And like you just said, they just have too many holes. I'll give you another example, and I don't know what his medicals say. But Seattle, for example, who's just dying for interior offensive line help. They were the worst interior offensive line last year in the league by the numbers, and they were just terrible in interior pressure. They could not run the football even with Kenneth Walker. They brought in our guy Tevin Jenkins today, which is a guy who slid through the cracks. He's had injuries. Seattle. And they didn't sign him. They didn't sign him, but they brought him in for medicals because he had some medical issues. But here's a guy who's 27 years old. He was a 39th overall pick of the draft a few years ago. He's had success at guard and tackle for the Bears, but he's had a lot of injuries. And so Seattle's been dying to get some interior line help, so they're talking to him, and word is that they may sign him in Seattle. And that's the kind of signing the Niners need because, like you said, they have 11 draft picks. You're not hitting 11. You're just not. And even if you were to hit them down the line, they're not going to all hit in the first year. So a guy like that, now that we've gone through all these waves of free agency, it's almost like a strainer. Like there are a few pieces left that you can pick out of there, but you got to be smart with it. So look, like I said, I don't know what the medicals are on Tevin Jenkins. There's a reason why a 27-year-old guy who was a second-round pick and had some solid years in Chicago isn't signed to a team right now, because everybody's desperate to sign these guys. But you've got to find a couple of these guys in addition to the draft. They've got to find a couple of guys that slid through the cracks. They're going to have to find a couple of guys now that guys are getting signed. Well, you signed a free agent. Okay, well, you got to let somebody go. So you got to scour the waiver wire. That's just kind of where they are. And I'm not mad at what they've done, but the response to letting the guys go is head scratching at the least. When you have McCaffrey coming back from what he's coming back from, and Guerrero, as inexperienced as he is, I'm sorry, man, you can't let Jordan Mason go. And I get it. Mason wants to start somewhere. He deserves that opportunity. But the entire offseason for the 49ers was about cold and calculated. Hey, I need to start somewhere. Okay, Jordan, you got it. Let's trade you for a pick swap and a 6th rounder. Wait a minute. You had a 2nd-round tender on the guy. So why don't you put like a 3rd or a 4th-round tender on the guy so that the team would actually go after him and you could get a decent pick? You did a pick swap and a 6th rounder for the guy who was the leading rusher for almost the whole first half of the league last year, and perfect for the zone read, puts his foot in the ground and goes north and south. Like, you don't just give those guys away and decide that, we'll just find it right in the conference. And not only that, well, let's just go find another running back. You mean like you did in the 3rd round with Price, like you did in the 3rd round with Trey Sermon? Like, you're not exactly
Williams.
Great. Yeah, it's like
you've missed on as many backs as you hit on.
And I love McCaffrey, I do, but he's getting closer to 30. And the smart money would be what the Warriors do with Steph Curry, which is, hey, we love you, dude, and we know you want to play every down, but you can't. And we have a guy that was leading the league in rushing and can play. Now you're looking at Guerrero, who I like a ton, but as you and I have talked about a lot, he was a wide receiver for the most part in college. 1 year at Louisville where he actually got the ball. Was at Wisconsin, really didn't tote it a lot. And he had a couple of nice runs last year that were outstanding, that shows his speed and his strength and his size, but he must have missed, it just conservatively speaking, 10 or 12 runs. It was like, there's the hole, didn't see it. So he's got a ways to go, and now he's your backup. And if McCaffrey's Achilles doesn't hold up, you're a team that wants to bash people right in the mouth, right? And you don't have the running back to do it, and you don't have the center to do it, you don't have the left guard to do it. It's confusing, to say the least, because a guy like Mason, you just got to tell him, sorry, brother. Like, we're going to sign you to that 2-year, $7 million contract. That's just the way it's going to go. We can't trade you to Minnesota, a team we could be competing with, like you said, in the NFC, because you want to start. That's warm and cuddly. We're cold and calculated. So what are you? Are you cold and calculated, or are you warm and fuzzy? Because I can't give Jordan Mason a starting job somewhere against a competitor of mine because he wants it. I need him behind Christian McCaffrey, who's coming off an Achilles. Sorry. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, this is a weird one, because I've known for a long time that he was going to be moving. I mean, he's I don't know what the deal is. I really don't, but there was something wrong there. I don't know what. I mean, it's just something wrong. I mean, it's like he said something that he shouldn't have said. Somebody got in his face and told him he was messed up, and he just kind of wilted the rest of the year. I mean, he played and stuff. He was still running around, but he just seemed like, like so bothered by everything. He just seemed like he really didn't want to talk to the media, didn't want to deal with it.
It was after that on the field thing, right? Where he
just said
he wasn't going to start, or someone was going to start or something. And then he didn't mean to, but he said it. And then he kind of went in the shell after that.
I think
he was going to start. When was he going to start? Something like that, right? I think
he said,
like Lisa Salter kind of a thing, right?
I think he said that the timeline for him starting, like they told me he was going to start, was a day before the public knew he was going to start. And you know the way the NFL is with their gambling and their rules and their everything. It's like, you will not deceive the gambling public even for 24 hours. You know what I mean? It's like, so I think he probably got chastised for saying that and maybe speaking out of turn or whatever. He just didn't think. But I mean, from that point on, it was like he just really was bothered. And, I agree. I mean, once again, it's like John Lynch said about Deebo Samuel, hey, we're not in the business of getting rid of good football players. You just did. You just got rid of a good football player. And, you can sit there and say, well, we got Garendo. You had them both last year, and you needed them both, and you still
Well, that's
needed
Kyle's
them.
offense, right? I mean, Kyle's offense is put your foot in the ground and run over the defender. So it's not run out of bounds. It's not juke the guy. A lot of running backs get hurt. It goes back to Mike Shanahan's system where in Denver he had 3 and 4 backs in a year. Kyle Shanahan, the same kind of a thing. You need that. And everybody's going to think that McCaffrey's going to come back scot-free. Maybe he will. And maybe he'll just take the ball like he did 2 years ago and you don't really need a backup. But for the most part in Kyle's offense, you need 3 or 4 running backs to get through a year. Elijah Mitchell was never going to come back. We understand that. And that started his rookie year. His agent was messing with them, and he wasn't. They were at odds of when he was hurt. That goes all the way back to his rookie year. So I understood, again, certain guys were going to leave the building. I understood that, just like you said. Mitchell was going to leave the building. I understand that. And I like Garendo. We both do. But he's very inexperienced. And now you've got a guy coming off an Achilles. You want to run the football more than ever now. And all of a sudden, you've got him and Garendo, and you're going to count on finding, as you said, it's a good running back draft. There's no doubt about it. But now you're going from, and this is how I like to look at rookies. Rookies are lottery cards. And if they come through, that's amazing. But it may take them a year. It may take them a couple of years, whatever the case may be. And now you're at the point at so many different positions where they have to come through. They have to have a rookie defensive tackle play well, a rookie edge, a rookie linebacker, a rookie running back, a rookie receiver. Like, that's just not going to happen. It's not realistic.
I mean, it is, the further we get into this offseason, the more it becomes imperative. It's not just like an option to trade back. They need to trade back.
Yeah.
They need to trade back. They need volume. They need to trade back. And the strength of this draft ends right pretty much where they're at. The strength of this draft is in the top 15. So they may be able to get out if they want to get out of 11, because there are, Shedeur Sanders and Ashton Chianti and the tight end from Penn State and some unique players that are right there that are going to be in that 8 to 15 range. And you might be able to get somebody to move down. They might be able to move down to 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever. But if you look at the numbers, they absolutely have to. They have to move down. They also probably need to make a volume trade with Aiyuk for picks. And I'm telling you, the Browns make more and more sense every day. The Browns people, if you type in Brandon Aiyuk in Google or on X, the first thing that comes up is Brandon Aiyuk to the Browns. So it's like there's obviously a lot of people searching that. I think there's a very good chance Andrew Berry would be willing to trade his 4 6th-round picks for Brandon Aiyuk. Now, if you're the 49ers, would you take 4 6th-round picks for Brandon Aiyuk?
No, I can't do that.
I think I would, because the real thing here, John, is not the picks. It's the $110 million that you're trying to get out from underneath from Jed, which means you're not getting, I don't know if that should be their priority, but I think that is their priority. I think they've explained that to people. Think about it this way. Out of the blue, the 49ers are a rich franchise that has played deep into the playoffs for years. They own their own stadium. They're very, very wealthy. Out of the blue, people are talking about the 49ers. Well, everybody knows their situation, their financial situation. What is their financial situation? Their quarterback, who they've been dramatically underpaying for 4 years, is now going to make market rate. That's their situation. That's what all this hand-wringing's about. Every other team in the league seems like they. So what is their situation? Is the situation that they have no cash, that they're cash poor? Is that why they're selling off? What is the situation? Nobody's ever really explained the situation. People have only referenced the situation. And now here we are, where they're clearly trying to shed cash. That's, are they shedding it to go spend it over here, or are they just shedding it? And what is the plan? This is a team who's the media, the fans, and the players, the locker room, everybody, the coaches, everybody associated with this franchise expects them to compete at the highest level. And right now, in a couple of short weeks here in the beginning of free agency, it almost looks like that's not going to be their reality in 2025 without a monster draft. And I know it's possible, but it's highly unlikely, and it puts a ton of pressure on Lynch and the draft people to make this happen.
Well, Buffalo did this last year. The Rams did it 2 years ago. It's a financial reset, and whether people want to believe what it is or not, it's a financial reset. They're not tearing down. They're not rebuilding. They're not doing any of those things. And the reason I know that is because you and I both know this. If they said to John Lynch, "We're rebuilding," John Lynch would be in the booth replacing Kirk Herbstreit on Thursday night. Because the only reason John Lynch is here is to win a championship. He set a goal. He's a goal-oriented guy. He set a goal, and he wants to win a championship. And then the next day, he'll be in the booth. Because John Lynch is a guy from San Diego, and I'm not saying he doesn't want to work hard, but he's busted his ass. And as you well know, because you've been in the business, being a general manager is 24/7, 365. I mean, it's just what it is. He could make more money doing TV, which he's probably better at anyway, and not have to answer to anybody, and be home 4 to 5 days a week in San Diego, hanging out, playing golf, going to the beach, than he is being a general manager in San Francisco. But the only reason he's doing that is to win a championship. So if he had the indication they were rebuilding, he would be gone. And Kyle Shanahan, everybody, fire Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan wouldn't need to be fired, because Kyle Shanahan would go to Jed and say, "Look, man, I'm not into rebuilding, bro. I've been to NFC championships games, Super Bowls. I want to win a championship. I'll go the Andy Reid route. You get me, just let me go. And if you guys want to rebuild, bring in a new coach, bring in a new general manager, do this thing over, because we're not rebuilding types. They've been too close. Kyle Shanahan's not going to rebuild. John Lynch sure as hell is not going to rebuild, because he can make more money doing TV. So those guys are still here. So I know that maybe people think this is semantics, but it's not. It's a financial reset. They'll be aggressive again, but they started to look at what's going on right now, and about $90 million now of cap hits for guys no longer on the team. And they decided, we've got to reset this thing. We've just got to decide. And that goes to your point of Brandon Aiyuk, who I thought this whole time was not going to get traded, just because the value is so low. You don't trade a stock that low. Who's going to catch the football? All these, it became personal, but you start looking at this. Hey, if you're going to do a financial reset, because Aiyuk would cost you another $18 million on dead cap. If you're going to do a reset, do the whole thing. And I'm not saying rebuild, but if you're going to do a financial reset, do it all. Just do it all.
That makes sense then, John? I mean, think about it. I mean, if you're the 49ers, Jed's got $110 million out there for a receiver that they don't want. I mean, I don't know that they don't want him, but they don't appear to want him. And when Lynch was asked about the trade rumors, he didn't say that's our guy, we're keeping him. He basically poured gas on the thing.
And he moved to a different topic. He moved to he tied it in with the money, right? He said, well, we don't want to spend money.
And then he said, well, and the good part of this is that, we're going to get younger. So it's like he referenced that he's going to trade Brandon Aiyuk for picks. And then here's a lot of talk out of Cleveland that they want Brandon Aiyuk. And I just looked up their picks, because I don't think Aiyuk is going to fetch day 1 or day 2 picks, because I just think because of the money and because of the situation, because of the injury, there's risk there. So, yeah, is there gain? Yeah, Brandon Aiyuk's in the prime of his career. If he gets healthy, he could be one of the 15 or 20 best receivers in pro football in a year. But for the 49ers, he also represents $110 million when they're trying to do a financial reset. Why not take
the only thing I would do
4 6-round picks for Brandon Aiyuk? Let them take the money. There's talk that maybe a guy like Greg Newsome could be part of the deal. The other guy that I love in Cleveland, who's exactly the same thing as Aiyuk, he's just on defense, is JOK, who hurt his neck in a tackle against the Ravens, and he's kind of unknown. I mean, if you want to just go unknown, banged up star for banged up star, you do that and get a couple 6-round picks. I don't know. I mean, but I do think the Niners could really use draft volume, and there's no question that Aiyuk is not going to fetch day 1 or day 2 picks. I don't think.
Well, that's the only reason you would keep him is you look at this year and with his injury, and the reason he hasn't been moved so far, they really were going to move him, is they just haven't gotten any kind of value back in return because he's such damaged goods and you don't know when he's going to be back. So he's almost impossible to trade right
What do you
now.
want?
And
What do
again,
you
given
need?
his value. Well, here's my point is next year. So this year, if you trade him, you're going to get an 18 million hit plus who's going to catch the football for you. Now you got to go first or second round with a receiver because I don't know what Purcell is. And Jennings is a nice player where he is, but he's not a one. So now I've got to turn around with all the needs I have, and I've got to look at a wide receiver. Next year, as far as Aiyuk is concerned, if he's healthy, then you can get decent value for him. And then secondly, in next year, it's $12 million hit. In the third year of his deal, because it's a 3-year, $76 million contract, then you get out of that contract for $9 million. So a year from now, you trade him. Pearsall hopefully becomes what you drafted him to be. Aiyuk is healthy, and you trade him, and you only take a $12 million cap hit, and he's healthy, so maybe you get a second round pick for him. Because right now, realistically, I don't think you can get better than like a 4, and you might get a 4 that could turn into a 3 depending on when he's healthy. But how do you trade a guy? How do you go and talk to somebody about a guy that you say maybe he'll be back week 4, maybe he'll be back week 6, maybe he'll be back week 8? Like, what if I'm the other team? What am I getting, and when am I getting him? That's a problem for me because then I don't know how to set up my team.
Well, that's why it's got to be a reduced it's got to be a reduced cost. But the question is this: how much will John Lynch reduce the cost on Aiyuk? Because at the core, we know that the real issue here is that 110 million. It's the 110 million of Jed's money that Jed wants back, I think. We'll see. Can John offload Aiyuk for such a small price in picks or in compensation that the Browns, that the Niners can get out from underneath that 110? It sounds like, hey, if they're doing a reset and they're copying the Rams, this is what the Rams did. Matt Barrows wrote this article about it, and I had him on KMBR on the Niners Nightly to talk about it. One of the things that was interesting, and I didn't realize until I read the actual print of this, John, but when the Rams did their rebuild a couple of years ago, and they did basically what the Niners are doing. They didn't spend in free agency, cut a bunch of guys in their 30s, just basically turned it over.
They had won a Super Bowl, though. That's the biggest difference.
That's the difference. They had won a Super Bowl, but they got rid of Ramsey. They got rid of Wagner. They got rid of Leonard Floyd. They made a bunch of moves. But when they went to camp that next year, they had 44 players on their 90-man roster who were either new from other teams or rookies. And that included 26 undrafted rookies. So that's what, as far as the way this is penning out right now, because the free agent market, I mean, you said it, there might be a guy here or there that you could get that would plug a hole. That wouldn't be bad. I'm not saying that's totally bereft of talent, but it's pretty much picked over several times. And you have as many picks as you have, right? You can only get so many. They may be, in major business in the undrafted market, because otherwise, how are you going to fill out your football team? And we'll see if that's a good, we'll see how good they are at it. I mean, that's a really tough way to play. They found players in this way in the past, but it's a tough way to contend. I'll just say this. There are people, I mean, if they can contend this year, that means that they really did a nice job from here on out, because today on March 17th, they don't look like a contending roster. They really don't. And there's not tons of free agents or trades to be made. So it really is like all about rookies, and they may have a ton of rookies on their roster, and we'll see. I'm pro draft, and they're coming off a great draft. So maybe they got Brock as Mr. Irrelevant. They got guys like Jeff Wilson and Mostert and all these guys as undrafted guys. So maybe they have confidence that they can find players, but they're in a pickle here because they kind of have to.
Well, and as bad as things are, if we look logically at things, and there's a lot of what ifs, but if Aiyuk stays aboard and he's back by week 4 or 5, they'll have a competent receiver core. They've got George Kittle, who they're going to extend in this offseason despite all this cutting back on money. They're going to re-sign Brock Purdy. I think what's going to end up happening is I just have a sneaking suspicion, because they like McKivitz as a guard more than a tackle. I think they're going to take a right tackle who's going to be the replacement eventually for Trent Williams, and they're going to move McKivitz to left guard, and that's going to take care of the offensive line. So they're going to score points. A lot of it is going to come down to McCaffrey's health. And by moving Mason, they must think that McCaffrey is going to be healthy. That's part of it that tells me. But it's the defense for me. And Robert Saleh can only do so much. But as you sit here right now, and I was making this analogy the other day, my wife can walk into a house and she can see it. Like I can say this house is crap, and she can, no, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and she can see it. Right now, defensively, I can't see it. Because right. I don't see a linebacker next to Fred, and I don't see anyone next to Bosa on the defensive line. And I see a secondary that's going to make a lot of mistakes because they're young. I see Jair Brown making a ton of mistakes at free safety. I like Mustafa, but he still made a lot of mistakes. So, it's going to take a minute. So defensively, I like that they brought Robert Saleh back. There's no question about it. But they've got a lot of work to do on the defensive side of the ball. And like you said, it's just not realistic to think, okay, they're going to take 11 picks and 8 of them are going to be on defense, and all those guys are just going to hit. In the front 7, I was looking at it the other day just from a Pro Football Focus standpoint, and I know they're not always right, but you had Bosa who had like a 91.4 grade, and I think Warner had like an 89.4, and then everybody else on their defense that's left is in like the 40s and the 50s. The 40s, the 50s, think about it like a grade out of school. Like if you got like a 53 out of test, man, your mom was like, you're grounded for a month. I mean, the numbers are atrocious. I mean, they're front 7. It might be, honestly, the 5 of the 7 of the front 7 might be the worst 5 in the NFL. Now, look, they've got a draft and they've got time to do something about it. But as we sit right now, as of March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, for the love of God, man, I mean, it is bad.
It's bad.
Really bad.
I think you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. Here's mine. All right. Because everybody's got you got to have a plan. And here's the plan that what I see in this draft is I see on day 3 some really good linebackers, but and these guys are small and they can really run, and they're some really good linebackers. I mean, there's probably 8 to 10 of them. And they're smaller guys, 220, 225. They're not 250. But they can really run, but they have to be covered up. What I think I would do if I were the 49ers is see if I could trade back from 11, just a couple spots, and see if I could start my draft with Kenneth Grant without trading too far down.
The D tackle from Michigan, the monster
tackle. He's just a monster. I mean, I know Harbaugh is going to be angling for him because Harbaugh is the guy that talked him up to Bruce Feldman once upon a time when he was a freshman, saying that this is the greatest defensive talent I've ever seen. But what he is, he's 6'3", he's 330 pounds, but he moves like a man that's 50 or 60 pounds less. I mean, he is really cooking at 330. And he's just, so that makes him a pass rusher. The base and the weight and the strength, he's indestructible lower body. So he's just, you could fall into his legs. He's got like Kinlaw kind of tree trunk legs. It's like you're not going to knock his legs off. So I would start with Kenneth Grant, and I would try to go big up front, some big bodies in the front line. And I'm looking for road grading blockers on offense, and I'm looking for big, powerful defensive linemen on defense. And then I'm going to try on day 3 to draft 2 or 3 undersized but super productive, run around linebackers that have to be protected. But if you do protect them, they could be awesome, but you got to keep the guys off their legs. So,
yeah.
And the other guy that I would try to make a trade for, because I've heard that he's available, is Jordan Davis from the Eagles. So I know a lot of people think it's a big marshmallow. The Eagles are looking to trade him because they got other guys. And
they're going to have to start signing these young guys is what's going to happen. And they don't want to be a situation like the Niners. So they're deciding who they want to make a priority before the time even comes. Because Jalen Carter is getting re-signed. So they're looking at it going, okay, we got to make a decision here. We can't sign everybody because they, like you said, they nailed a bunch of drafts. They realized they can't sign everybody. And they're looking at Davis, who's more of a part-time player than a full-time guy. But Jalen Carter is their version of Nick. I mean, in terms of, they're Quinn and Williams, they're D lineman that is essentially going to anchor that defensive line.
Yeah.
And so they're going to, and they're not going to be able to sign both of those guys.
Right. But I mean, Jordan Davis is the kind of hulking big man who I think Cassera could really do something with. I mean, the Niners need to get bigger up front and stronger up front, and because the linebackers are all, there's a lot of great ones, but they're all smaller guys.
But the thing
and they're
about
also
linebackers
hyperactive.
yeah, but the thing that scares the hell out of me, man, and you and I are always down at training camp together, so I bet we were standing next to each other. In fact, I think we were. But when they drafted Reuben Foster, and I know everything that happened with Reuben off the field, but we were all excited, and we watched Reuben Foster in drills going forward. And we're like, Reuben Foster's a badass. This guy's good. And then we watched Reuben Foster go backwards to try to cover pass routes.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the damn tight end, but he never made the team, and he was like 4th string. And I mean, Foster fell down on the cut, and then Juszczyk, it was like, oh my God, Juszczyk cooked him. I mean, it was like player after player after player cooking him. And it could be Juszczyk, it could be Kittle, it could be the 4th string guy. A lot of linebackers come into the NFL, young linebackers, and they can move forward just fine. They can't move backwards. And what starts, and we know this, is that what teams do is game plan is built on who can we beat. And it just takes one. And so that's the big loss for me for Dre Greenlaw is I get it coming off the Achilles. Maybe your medicals weren't good, whatever the case may be. But a linebacker, and you're not going to find Fred Warner every year, but Fred can do everything. And so when you bring that linebacker onto the field, it's like Devondre Campbell last year, who was terrible at everything. But you and I laughed most of the year last year when he played before he quit on the team. We watched 59 Campbell all season long because he was turning around chasing somebody, and all offenses did was throw to tight ends and backs to his side the whole damn season. And that's what scares me about a young linebacker is linebackers can come forward really, really well coming out of college, a lot of them, but they can't cover the pass. They just don't understand, and they're going to get attacked. And so the Niners, that's why Greenlaw hurts so bad, is because the Niners have got to find a kid that you can plug in there right away, and you know he's getting attacked. You know they're going to test him, and it's really hard for a young linebacker when they do that because it's a select few that can come into the league and do what Patrick Willis did or Luke Kuechly did or Warner did or some of these elite guys who know they're getting attacked, but they know how to defend the pass. It's just really hard.
Well, I mean, and championship ball, it all starts, run the ball, stop the run. So, you got to have, to me, the areas. I mean, if I were the Niners, I'd pretend we don't have Christian McCaffrey because he's got double Achilles. He's an older player. Right. He had a PCL injury. Let him surprise you. Pretend like that's a major need. I'm looking at this draft. There's some running backs in this draft. Now, I realize, you can get running backs in any round, but there's also
just don't take one in the 3rd.
There's some special players in this draft. I mean,
take one in the 6th or as a free agent, just not in the 3rd round.
Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State is just a phenomenal back. He's 225 pounds. He runs in the 4.4s, and he's just a bull. He's an absolute bull. He loves to run through people. He was awesome at Ole Miss before he was at Ohio State. So I mean, I don't know what he's probably going to be a 2nd round pick.
Yeah, he's really good.
He's really good. But I mean, you got to find what I would say if I were, talking to John Lynch is, look, great players, regardless of position, are equalizers. If you get a great player, does anybody sit there and go, you know what, we got this great player, but he's a safety? No, you're just happy that you got a great player, So just get great players. And it doesn't matter if they're redundant or if they seem like, you've got guys that are similar or whatever. Don't worry about any of that. Just go keep drafting great players. And it would be so easy for them to move around just slightly in this draft and get 15 picks. I mean, it would be so easy. They already have 11. You could easily move down a couple times and get a couple extra picks. And all of a sudden you got 15 picks. And then 15 picks, is a lot of picks. You can do a lot with that. We'll see. We'll see what they can do. Let's hit a couple of these supers, and then I got a couple things I want to ask you. Baby Radiant says, just give us the Super Bowl. I've heard enough. Thank you.
Well, to his point, it's funny, and I didn't see Matt's piece, but I did do a little research. When the Bills did it, they went 14-3 when they did the breakdown, and when the Rams did it, they went 10-7. So all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, I don't expect that, but so I don't expect that.
First year they won 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the second year, the one thing the Niners have to do is they have to make last year the down year and start building the thing back up. They can't have big this year the down year. You know what I mean? Last year had to be the down year. We got this one from Baby Radiant. Should they sign Garrett Bradbury? It's interesting because Chris Forster said to us like late in the year, something to the effect of like Bradbury was a guy that he really liked. And then Bradbury was cut today. So yeah, in December, Forster mentioned liking Bradbury during the draft process, said he was a good scheme fit. Anyway, he got released by the Vikings. Post June 1st cut, saves about $5.2 million on the cap for the Vikings in 2025.
Another team that they're going to fight with Seattle with. I talked to somebody today. He was a Darnold center in Minnesota, and they need a center in Seattle. So it's another one of those things. Look, you and I have talked to this to our blue in the face. Jake Brendel was on his butt a lot, and that there's just no doubt. He was, I think it was the 12th best run blocking center, as crazy as that is. He was like the 38th pass blocking center. And when you have Brock Purdy as your quarterback, who's 6 foot, no matter what the numbers say, he's 6 foot, middle pressure is the worst thing you can have. And Brendel was constantly on his butt, and you were getting middle pressure. So he's got to be replaced. That's just another guy we talk about, but they just might not have enough. And Bradbury's been a little bit of a disappointment. I think it was like a second-round pick or something like that. I mean, it was a fairly high pick. And he hasn't been great, but I got to think he's better than Brendel, right? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, I think when I see Brendel, I see a smart, conscientious, hardworking football player who just physically gets worked by the bigger, stronger guys on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And against the biggest, strongest guys, he's kind of, a major liability. So I think, he's smart. I think he makes good decisions. I think he's a hardworking guy. I think he's tough. It's like, there's a lot of good traits, but over, at the point, if you're going to have success, I mean, they can't run the ball inside the 5. Once they brought Juice back, to me, that dialed up the heat on Brendel because you cannot run the ball inside the 5-yard line. So you want to tell me that it's not Juice and Juice ain't the problem? That's fine, but somebody is. All right. And that somebody it's not like it could be the corner. It's not like, it's not like Renardo Green is, it's not, pretty sure it's not Renardo. All right. Pretty sure it's not Aiyuk, so it's the center, the guard, the other guard, the back, the fullback. Those are the people associated with running the ball inside the 5. And they can't do it. So
they don't move. I mean, you can just watch it. I mean, again, we look at all the numbers, and I was looking at all the numbers too, as far as Pro Football Focus and the numbers there. And I did a whole piece on Juice. And look, they're not good numbers, but at the end of the day, you can just watch the game, and you don't even have to look at the numbers. They don't move anyone off the line. Like watch Niners last year in the run game in general, but specifically in short yardage and specifically in the red zone. Go back and look at it. They don't move anybody. Nobody goes backwards. The running back is getting hit right in the hole at the line of scrimmage constantly. And I know that McCaffrey is going to make them better in that regard. But Jordan Mason, north and south, is not a terrible running back. And too many times he was getting met in the backfield because, especially, what do you want to do? You want to run left side because that's where Trent is. But the left guard was so bad in the run game, and the center was getting knocked back in the run game so much that they were having trouble even moving anybody.
John Holmes says, do you guys think J.K. Dobbins or Nick Chubb have anything left? Draft Montrell Johnson from Florida in the draft and focus on the O-line and front 7 early in the draft.
I'm talking draft, bro. It's on.
Well, I'll say this. Nick Chubb has had the kind of injuries. Did you see the Minkah Fitzpatrick hit on Nick Chubb? I mean, I can't authorize my team to sign Nick.
And
Chubb.
He was so good. He was just so good. And it's heartbreaking, man. Because you see his name out there on the free agent wire and you're like, man, that would be a great guy. But then, like you said, he's just
not the same guy.
He's had the type of injuries. He's just not the same.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is like, this injury was not any kind of an injury. He came back. He's a beast of a man. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's to come back from that. I mean, it was just devastating. And Nick Chubb's awesome, but no. And as far as J.K. Dobbins, on the other hand, I would take a chance on J.K. Dobbins.
They're just going to go young everywhere, though. I mean, I'm
just saying if you're looking for a back, if you get to the summer, I mean, you're not taking them now, but like if you get through the draft and you don't get anybody, J.K. Dobbins is a good back. And then Montrell Johnson's a really good back. I love Montrell Johnson. I don't know if you saw much of Florida this year, but I mean, this guy's, 6 feet, 215, but great athlete, can catch the passes in the back out of the backfield. Super electric runner. I mean, this is a really good NFL running back, Montrell Johnson. So that's that. Yeah, I love the idea of drafting Montrell. Ray Pest says, "Hey, here's a single. Thank you, Ray."
Like you're a dancer.
Exactly.
Dollar comes up out of the stage.
Could you
anonymous dollar?
Could you put that in the G string? Thank you.
Come on, guys. Larry's working hard for those dollars. Throw them up on the stage. There comes a flying dollar.
Wait, here comes two more.
Just throw it in dollars. People are making it right now.
You saw me. I busted out the feather duster. And now here comes two more. Tabitha on the main stage.
Let's go now. Larry's working hard. Get off those wallets, guys. Let's go. Throw in those dollars. That's tremendous. Man, just a random dollar comes flying up. That's great.
In Vegas, there was a strip club next to our hotel. We were staying at the Strat. We were staying on that end of the strip.
Yes, Strat. Of course.
The name of the strip club, The Office.
Oh, yeah. Where you at, The Office?
I'm at The Office.
That's a great idea.
I'm at The Office. Goodness. How come you have all these? How come you have all these receipts that say The Office? Well, business.
Man,
business expenses, honey.
Yeah.
Ray Pest says, "What are some names to watch for our day 2 picks?" I'll give you one right now. Olufemi Oladejo, the edge rusher from UCLA, who was incredible at the combine, incredible at the Senior Bowl, and he's a terrific pick. Now he's a little underpowered, but he's not Drake Jackson. He's healthy. He's ready to roll. He's not broken down. He'd be a leader on the team. He's a really intriguing player. He used to be a stacked linebacker. So I would say Tony Pauline says they're interested in him in the second round. I think you might be able to get him in the third round. The second round, I mean, other than that, who are they interested in? I don't really know. I would say
watch for guards and defensive tackles. I mean, I think that what the Niners, right? I think what the Niners are doing is that there are the premium positions, and there's a lot of defensive tackles. I'm just using logic in this whole thing. Is I like a lot of the defensive tackles. Grant, like you said, is really, really special because of his size and movement ability. But if I had to guess, I just think because, and I think this was Daniel Jeremiah said there are 24 starters. He has starter grades on 24 defensive tackles. Last year he had 12. I just think knowing that depth, I think the 49ers will take more premium positions early and go with defensive tackles. So I think second day could be defensive tackles. I think second days, if you're looking at a guard, although like I said, I think they might go tackle early, which they don't normally do. But I could see that those kind of positions, those filler positions, because you don't need superstar defensive tackles. You really don't. I mean, it would be nice to have a Chris Jones, but you need a pocket pusher. You need a run stuffer. And then you need those edge getting after the quarterback. That's what Chris Kosarek's system is designed to do. And they've got to find somebody opposite Nick, but they need guys inside to stop the run and push the pocket. And you don't have to spend top 10 picks on those guys. It'd be nice, but I don't think.
I mean, Kenneth Grant is blue chip, right?
Yeah, he is.
In round 2 or 3, the Maryland kid Jordan Phillips, former wrestler, he's really intriguing. CJ West from Indiana, I think showed at every. Yeah, he's super.
He had a nice combine.
Great combine. Also, he was great in the one-on-ones before the Shrine game. He just was totally unblockable. And then there's just a bunch of other guys. Nazir Stackhouse, Jamare Caldwell. I was talking to Guy Haberman. He did a lot of play-by-play this year. I said, who stood out to you? He said Jay Toia, the gigantic nose guard for UCLA, who's 6'2", 340. And we're just talking about the one technique guys. But, I mean, there's a whole other group of guys, the 3 technique guys, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Darius Alexander. Greg Cosell went on the game the other day and said that Walter Nolan reminds him of Jalen Carter.
Really?
He reminds him a lot of Jalen Carter. And I can see why, because Walter Nolan's a pass rusher. Jalen Carter's a pass rusher. They're both like naturally 290, but if you saw them, they look like just regular guys because that's like their normal size. They're not like super cut or anything.
Right.
They're just like gigantic, great athletes at that size. So Walter Nolan's like a Chris Jones. You could play him at defensive end. He could play 1 technique, 3 technique, 5 technique, 9 technique. I mean, he can do it all. He can absolutely do it all. And then Derek Harmon, I'm not as big a fan of his, but he did lead the country with like 55 tackles for loss. Like other guys on this list had like 23, 33. This guy had 55. I don't know if Oregon was padding those stats or if he really just was the menace that they described, but Darius Alexander from Toledo, Josh Farmer from Florida State, the gigantic duo of Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher from Nebraska.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of depth.
I mean,
I think the Niners will do that, and I think that's what they have to do. I mean, you look at it right now, and it's like, what do they have at defensive tackle right now? Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis. I mean, my God, man,
they got Evan Anderson. That's it.
Evan
Anderson is the one guy who you could say, you know, if you had a beast next to him, you could be like, well, he's a run stuffer. You know, he could be your first and second down run stuffer. But they got 2 guys. They used to have 10 guys that were, stack them, pack them, rack them. They had them everywhere.
That's what you have to do. You have to rotate those interior guys, and they don't have enough. So I would think that they'll get a couple of those guys in the draft, but I bet they wait. Although, like you said, if a guy like a Mason Graham, for example, and I don't think he's going to fall that far, but I could see just on his measurables, his combine was just okay. He doesn't have the longest arms, those kind of things. I could see somebody kind of going, and all of a sudden he falls to 11, and then you take him because it's just too good of a talent to pass up.
Yeah.
So, but outside of that, I don't think they'll do that.
Yeah, he's kind of a finished product.
Right.
It's like I don't know if he's going to get a whole lot better. The great thing is he's awesome day one, but I don't know if his upside's the same as like Grant.
I would agree with that.
Some of these other guys. But there you go, Ray Pest. I like to see how he said Ray Pest, and if you say it fast, it's Ray. That's great. It's really awesome, Ray.
Yeah, that's good,
really,
man.
Really proud of you, Ray.
I'm glad you caught that, by the way, because I would have just run right into that.
That was Ray Pest, everybody. Ray Pest.
Yeah, exactly. I would have just run right into that. I would have never caught it.
IP Freely, Seymour Butts.
Yep. I would run right into it.
Jeez. Old Fogey says Luke Gifford might be the new Dan Scuda.
Wow, I didn't think we'd have a Scuda reference.
I forgot about.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have about that's all they basically signed this offseason was Dan Scuda. They got like 10 special teams guys. At least special teams will be better.
Yeah, seriously.
Goodness, man.
Since those are the only guys that ever do interviews, we'll probably just get a chance to talk to them a lot. Boxing fan times 4. Thoughts on Wyatt Milam as a guard? Well, I'll say this. The one thing a guy sent me a tweet this morning. Now that I got my own YouTube channel, I can basically do whatever I want during the day, right? So, guy sent me a tweet, and he's like, "Hey, Krug, can you do a deep dive for us hardcore Niner fans on which offensive linemen the Niners are likely to target?" So it seemed like a simple enough request, but as you know, John, that's kind of hard to say, right? So, so I went back and I just looked up because I remember last year they made a big deal about the kind of what the Niners were looking for. And what I found was Dom Pooney, Jarrett Kitchen were the 2 offensive linemen they drafted. They both were, Pooney was the 3rd fastest in the short shuttle, and Kingston was the 5th fastest in the short shuttle, right? And then they also drafted Drake Nugent, or they not drafted, but signed Drake Nugent and Bryson Mays. And both those guys had numbers that were really good in this short shuttle. So, which is a 20-yard shuttle, and you got to go back and forth. It's the short shuttle is considered, it measures explosiveness and change of direction, and it strongly correlates to
zone
NFL
scheme,
offensive line play. Anyway, 4.47 is the key number. In 2024, only 6 offensive linemen ran faster than 4.47. The Niners drafted 2 of them. Anyway, I wanted to look it up. And then the other thing the Niners have gone with is they've gone with more experienced players, guys who played 4 years. So I wanted to look up today who were the guys who did the best at the combine in the short shuttle, who also were like 4-year starters, the kinds of guys that would cross connect to what they typically like. And here's who I have come up with. And this is a very select. This is like your Moneyball list of Niner offensive linemen. I would write this. I would write these names
I know.
down.
So somebody just put something on the board, and I'm not going to say what it is, but I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Okay.
I know, just a thought. I'm not going to say anything.
Caleb,
you've got to bring this up.
Caleb Rogers, offensive tackle, Texas Tech. Remember that name?
Yeah.
He's super fast.
Mm-hmm.
Has the best short shuttle run in the entire combine. Caleb Rogers. And he was a 5-year starter who made 55 career starts at Texas Tech.
That's always good.
Blocking for Taj Brooks. So he's played guard, center, right tackle. The film of this guy pulling and blocking. John, I got to show you this. I got to show you because it's just ridiculous. The footage of this guy pulling around the corner. This is one of the fastest offensive linemen I think I've seen. Wait until you see this. This is going to be, you're going to be like, whoa. Okay, here it is. Okay, let me set it up and then I'll share the screen here. Okay, here we go. This is all
like porn. I can see it in your eyes. This is like Pornhub. Football Pornhub.
All right, here it is. Caleb Rogers. Okay, look at this. He's the right tackle.
Gotcha.
He's over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he's going to pull around, but look at the speed on this right tackle.
Damn, he's downfield too.
I mean, seriously, that's in front of the running back. He's the right tackle. There is no
33.
Further. Yeah,
boom.
And then he jumped on top of him. But I mean, that's good movement, man.
Yeah.
For 300 pounds to be in front of the back when you're the right tackle and you're running to the left.
Yeah, that's nice.
There aren't too many right tackles. Colt McKivitz ain't doing this.
No, Colt McKivitz is not doing that.
He's not doing that.
No. And that's anyway. Right. I do think that's what they're going to do. I just have a sneaking suspicion now. If that person's not there, they're not going to do it. If the Missouri kid is there, if Will Campbell's there, if somebody like that drops to 11, I think they're going right tackle who can move to left tackle, and they're going to move McKivitz to left guard. But if they don't have somebody they like at 11, they won't do that. But I do think that, and they don't normally do that. But remember, they did take McGlinchey at 9, so I do think they understand the value of being up high right there and seeing if they might be able to get somebody who could replace Trent. Because would it shock you if this was Trent's last year? It wouldn't shock me, especially if they're going to go like rebuild or not rebuild, but retool, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Do you think Will Campbell's the best pick at 11?
I mean, if he's sitting there at 11, I'll defer to you on this. The short arm thing really doesn't freak me out as much as it does everybody else. I just think it's like Jared Goff's small hands or something like that. I think if you have the technique and you do everything else well, then you'll be fine. But if you don't, then that's one of those reasons why, your owner comes and goes, well, I already had short arms and that's why he sucks. I mean, if you suck and you have, 34-inch arms, but his are what, 32 and 5/8 or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
Then yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it's going to make that big of a difference. But if he's sitting there at 11, which I don't think he will be, then yeah, I think you got to take him. He's your right tackle. You move McKivitz to left guard, and then when Trent is gone, now you have a left tackle. Because you're gonna give Brock all this money, you might want to get him protected. That might be a good thing beyond this year.
So once again, here are the names. I'll just throw them out quickly to you. Caleb Rogers, Logan Brown from Kansas, who was Dom Pooney's teammate there at Kansas. He's a long arm tackle. Drew Kendall, whose dad Pete Kendall played in the NFL, Boston College center. Eli Cox from Kentucky, guard, 6'4", 310. Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia.
I like
Charles,
him a lot.
Yeah, he's a power.
I'd like to get him like third round. If you could get him like a third round to take care of Brendel, bye.
Yeah, that'd be bye Brendel right there.
Dude's 310 and runs like a 4.84. Like the dude's a serious athlete.
Well, he had a 4.84 40.
Yeah, guy's
he
a serious
athlete. He had a 4.56
athlete.
short shuttle and he had a 1.72 10-yard split at 315 pounds. I mean,
plus people said his and this is what you need out of a center. People said his interviews were great. That he was, people loved him. Right. And that's your center. I mean, your guard doesn't have to be that way. Your tackle doesn't have to be that way, but you need to have a smart center who's making the line calls and those kind of things, especially if you're getting a young guy to do it, which you can do that. You can have Creed Humphrey come in and do those kind of things. but I'd heard a lot of good things about him. I don't think he's going to make it to the third round, but if he were to,
yeah, that would be a guy. Charles Grant from William and Mary, 35-inch arms, amazing player. Josh Connerly from Oregon had the best 10-yard split at 6'5" and 311. He had a 171 10-yard split. This guy was a converted running back in high school. Just a monster from Oregon. Armand Membu ran 4.84 with a 174 10-yard split. Iowa's got a guard named Connor Colby, who's played over 2,500 snaps and ran incredibly well. And then Willie Lampkin from Carolina, my favorite guy from Coastal Carolina. He ran great.
There were people all in the chat going, Lampkin's coming.
Willie Lampkin sighting. But Wyatt Milam was on that list as well, down the list. Wyatt Milam
he's pretty tall, though, right? He might be too tall to play guard, though, right? Isn't he like 6'6"?
6'7".
You don't see a lot of 6'6", 6'7" guards.
Was his 10-yard split?
Yeah, he's a tackle.
Short shot.
I don't think he can be a guard. That's just too big to be that's too tall to be a guard. Can't get down.
Probably too big to be a guard. The skills report says Niners going to the Super Bowl.
This is my guy. Dude, he's so funny. Skills is the best. Number one, he went $2.71. He goes random numbers. And when he sends me supers a lot of times, he'll tell me about a random dream that he has. It's amazing. His recall, I can't remember dreams. His recall in his dreams is like nothing you've ever seen.
That's awesome.
And just wild, too.
I can remember my recall in my dreams is amazing, too, for like about 7 minutes. And then after about 7 minutes, I forget everything that I dreamt about.
I can't remember anything.
If you wake me up and did you just have a dream? Oh yeah, I can tell you all about it right now.
And then that's
but
it.
if I like took a shower and came back, what was
Nothing.
I have no idea.
Nothing.
I don't remember.
Nothing.
It just immediately gone. Just gone.
Bro, I didn't even know you could do 99-cent supers.
Franco,
$1.
Hey Franco, bust out the extra penny, buddy. Come on, Franco.
That's like when you were a kid. I went to 7-Eleven, and you're like, that's 99 cents. Oh, damn, 97, 98.
I hate this line, but I'm going to use it here. Franco, you're better than that. You're better than that. Is there anything worse that anybody can say to you than that? You know, Larry, you're better than that.
99-cent store.
Oh, shut up.
I know.
For all you know, I'm significantly worse.
Right. Yeah, it's usually someone trying to shame you, right? Like a principal or something, or a teacher or something like that. They're trying to shame you. You're better than that. It's like, no, I'm not actually. No, I'm not better than that.
Yeah, you think I'm better than this?
No, I'm not.
This is my best. I'm significantly worse than this.
There's another dollar floating up
Ray
to the
Pest is back.
Stage.
Thanks, Ray Pest. That's really funny. Ray Pest.
I do like the dollar though. The dollar is pretty good.
Should we announce it, Johnny, about our Friday show?
Oh yeah, why not?
We're gonna be doing a baseball show.
I can't wait to see this thing that your son came up with.
Kev designed a screen wrap.
Yeah, we should tell people, then ask them if they would do it, because I think people would do it, right? I think people would do this. They would join us on a Friday night, right? Tell them what we're thinking about here.
Okay,
this will be really good.
Yeah, so on Friday nights, there's we talk a ton of football. And we're going to talk a ton of football, and we're going to continue to talk a ton of football. But the one thing I do kind of miss is when we started the channel, we did a lot of baseball. Now we don't do a lot of baseball because the Giants have been so freaking boring that they've eliminated all, why would I'd rather talk off-season football than in-season baseball, because I'm sorry, but Siran Neal is more exciting to talk about than Wilmer Flores.
Wow,
all right.
That's a good poll question. You're probably
would you rather talk about Mike Yastrzemski or Mac Jones?
I mean, you got a point.
I
don't want to do another Yastrzemski discussion.
Heck, I would rather talk. I'd rather talk Quentin Post than talk about Yaz.
Wow,
and give me some Quentin Post conversation. So anyway, John and I are going to do a baseball show. It's not going to be a baseball show. It's just going to be on during the baseball game. We're going to go Giants Friday nights. Friday nights, we're going to go Giants live stream. And Kev has got a border that we can put around the outside of the screen. So like we could do something like this, do the border around the corners.
Yeah.
That has the scoreboard on it. so we can actually
So
keep score.
yeah.
So you can tune in and watch the score. We will talk about the game, but we'll talk about other things as well. And it's going to be a little Manning cast. We're going to have some guests from time to time. We're thinking about, maybe doing some beer chugging on home runs, maybe a 7th inning stretch, maybe, a couple different beer chugs. And we want you to hang out with us on a Friday night during Giants season.
And I think we're going to call it something to chug. Like, I think people, because I'm looking at the screen right now, and here's what they're not understanding is it's just going to be a big get together to drink, basically to drink beers, like home run, beer chug, whatever, all sorts of different beer chugs will make up these rules. The game will be going on at the same time. But I think one of the things you and I talked about is, look, it looks like they're going to finish in 4th place again. Certainly not, Friday free for all, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to just have fun. It's a get together on a Friday. Yeah. It's let's chug some beers. Let's have some laughs. It's not going to be hardcore baseball. It's not going to be anything. We're just going to have fun with baseball going on at the same time. Like you said, almost like a Manning cast thing where we just have fun. We do some poll questions. We chug some beers for home runs. Like we just have a really good time on a Friday night. And oh yeah, the game happens to be going on. That's kind of what we're trying to accomplish, right? I mean, I'm on the track, right?
Yep, absolutely. MF, will Larry chug a beer when Jung Hoo Lee gets hurt?
Well, he's already hurt.
He's already hurt.
He has a back problem now all of a sudden.
For Jung.
Like I said, I keep whiskey up here for such occasions. So, like, if he gets hurt, we'll do whiskey shots or
that was straight vodka. Straight vodka for Jung.
So that's what we'll do. We'll have a beer sponsor for this whole thing. We're out running around for a beer sponsor, and
we'll take calls. We'll take calls.
We're just gonna have fun on a Friday, and the game happens to be going on. So it's not, because right away I see, it's not going to be that. We're not going to bitch about the Giants. I mean, you and I have kind of tried to make a pact here that we're not going to bitch about the Giants during this thing. We're just going to have fun.
Bitch about the Giants all year. I just can't.
Right.
So we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun. We're going to watch the baseball game. We'll talk a little bit about the baseball game. But, like one of the first Fridays is going to be the Friday night after round 2 of the draft. So, I mean, we'll talk about the baseball game, but we'll be talking about the draft, and round 2 and what's ahead on round 3. And we'll do home or road. So, some of these games may start at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
Actually, I really like that. Start like a happy hour, 4 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, game's over. You go pass out.
Yeah, exactly. It'll either be an early night or a late night. We'll take some video calls and see if people want to chug some beers and have some fun. We'll get people into it. We'll have some fun. We're just gonna have some fun. That's what
we're thinking.
And we'll, if it gets serious, like, if the Giants have this great year and they win a bunch of games, we'll get serious with it, right? We'll get Ned Coletti on here. We'll see if we can get Buster on. We'll see if we can get somebody on and talk serious ball. But for the most part, we just want to have a good time, have some laughs, have some fun. And we just happen to do it around the Giants game, and we'll talk a little bit about. And then when the Giants hit home runs, I will chug beers because it's such a rarity. I mean, what's the chances that I would have to, I mean, seriously.
How about like a 5 home run game? That would be amazing. Like the first night, like a 5 home run game.
Well, I think they open in like. Well, you know what I was thinking too.
Well, they're not going to. On the home opener, they're not going to hit any home runs because they're playing the Mariners, and the Mariners have the best pitching staff in baseball. So that's going to be like 1-zip, 2-1.
Hear what I was. This is what
neither
I was
team can hit.
The first Friday is actually off because they open on a Thursday. So I was thinking about maybe doing it for the opener. It's Giants Reds in Cincinnati.
Oh, we'll get some home runs.
Oh, there'll be home runs there. I'm like Great American Ballpark. We might.
Yeah, we'll get some.
I might have to go. Stock up. I mean,
that's a good point. Now we're getting a beer sponsor. We're working on a beer sponsor right now. We'll have a beer sponsor for sure.
MF says the Giants are 16-5 in the Cactus. Seriously,
you know what? They reset when it starts. Not to be negative. See, I just started. Couldn't help it. I'll tell you this. Just real quick.
Do not squash my Giants 16-5 spring.
Okay, Webb's going to be Webb. If we want to be positive, Webb's going to be Webb. Verlander's a freak. He's throwing like 96, 97. Robbie Ray looks decent. Birdsong's got to be part of the rotation. So, at least they'll be able to pitch. Maybe. They might be able to pitch.
I'll tell you this. I think I saw the Vision the other day when I was watching their game. Who's looking good? Lou Trevino, the former A.
Oh,
He's
he
looking
he
good.
pitched today. I think didn't he pitch today? I think he did
Looking
pitch or
possibly.
yesterday.
He threw
Maybe it was
96 yesterday. He's throwing 96. So they also have this guy. I know you haven't seen him yet. They have a righty named Joel Peguero, who today threw an inning and a third shutout. This guy throws 102.
That's what I'm talking about.
And not only that, it's 102, and he's got like a nasty downbreaker. By the way, Verlander today, 5 shutout against the Chi Sox. He's got a 169 ERA. 3 hits, 2 walks, struck out 6. Verlander, how about this for a rotation? Verlander, Ray,
what?
This year for the Giants.
Yeah.
So Verlander, Ray, Webb.
Yeah.
And
Birdsong's got to be part of it.
Birdsong.
He struck out 8 yesterday.
And I think Harrison's got to open in the minors.
He might.
But
Hicks is. I want Hicks in the bullpen, man. I want Hicks to be the 7th inning guy. I want him the 7th. Yeah. And they probably won't start Root.
Oh my God. Could you imagine that? If you have Walker, Doval, Hicks all in the pen?
I want Hicks. People have been watching my show know, and they're probably sick of me saying this, but Hicks throwing 102 in the 7th, Doval being back to himself in the 8th, and Walker being in the 9th, you can play 6-inning games, and that's what you want to do. So to me, you're going your 3 that you just mentioned. Birdsong has got to be part of it. Kid's throwing like 98 this spring, plus he looks nasty. I think he threw 5 innings the other day, had 8 strikeouts. So I don't think they'd make Roop the 5th. Maybe they'd make Harrison the 5th. Whatever the case may be, early in the season, you don't need a 5th anyway. Just get Hicks in the bullpen to throw the 7th. You got a 7, 8, 9 of a bunch of guys throwing 100 out of the pen. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do.
The rotation looks pretty good. It doesn't look
they've
bad.
had a good spring.
Matos went 2 for 3 today. He's hitting 380 with a 400 on base. He's swinging it.
Yeah, I just have to wait on him.
Casey Schmidt's hitting well this spring. He's hitting 300. Grant McCrae's almost hitting 300. He had 2 walks and no strikeouts today. But they also have this other guy. When they made that trade for Soler last year,
right. Yeah,
they got this kid from the Braves named Sabin Sabalos. Have you heard of this guy?
Yeah,
this guy got a hit today. He's hitting 556 this spring, and he's got thunder in the bat. I mean, this guy's a third baseman. DH, left fielder. I mean, they list him as a third baseman. He's 6'3", 225. He's only 22 years old. He's from Puerto Rico. The guy looks like he can swing the bat. Sabin Sabalos. I'm telling you, man. Who knows?
I don't know. Spring, I never take too much of spring. It's just the way they look. Like when I watch Birdsong pitch, I'm like, okay. When I've seen Verlander, I'm like, okay, he had the neck. He's 42. I get it, but he looks good. When I see Robbie Ray, I could just see that hitters are up there going, what in the what? Like I can, those kind of things. I'm seeing that. The numbers, I don't know. Like for Matos, I got to see remember Matos for a week knocked in 11 runs, and then it was like, hello, is anybody here? I got to wait on him. But we'll
couple last thoughts before we get out of here.
Yeah.
Back to the sport people care about, the Niners.
Anyway, we are going to do a Friday baseball. We are going to
do a Friday Giants.
And it's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
And we're gonna drink beers, and we want you to hang out with us. So that's all we're saying.
Yep.
Friday nights. Negative.
Friday nights.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. A guy named Bobby Thompson, who covers the NFL journalist covering the Patriots, put out a thing today. Says, I fully expect the Patriots to re-engage in trade talks for Brandon Aiyuk. John, it really looks like the Niners have to trade Aiyuk by April 1st. He's got a $22.9 million bonus on April 1st. What do you think? I mean, how will Niner fans react if the Niners traded Brandon Aiyuk, save Jed
the offseason,
save Jed the $110 million, but did it for day 3 picks only, far beneath his actual market value? How will the fans react if they do that? If the Niners did this?
I think that they'd be incredibly pissed, and I don't get pissed because it's not my team and all those kind of things, but I think it's just stupid and irresponsible. Again, you're going to take another hit on a cap. This time it's going to be $18 million. You're trading him at the lowest possible value you could ever trade him at. And oh, by the way, now you've got to take a receiver early because I don't know what Ricky Pearsall is. And Jennings is not a number one receiver. So now what do I got? DeMarcus Robinson. I mean, he's a third or a fourth. I don't have a problem. You said this earlier, and I agree with you 100%. In a proper role, I don't have a problem with the DeMarcus Robinson as my fourth wide receiver. But now I've got to go into now I've traded Brandon Aiyuk, and great. The owner saved money. Congratulations. He's not starving. Now I've got to go get a receiver early in the draft too. So add defensive line, add an edge, add a linebacker, add a safety, add a corner, add a backup running back, add a receiver, add a pass catching tight end. Like, for the love of God, man. I mean, there's just not enough picks to go around. I'm just saying you could do this in a year. Like, I get it, Jed. You're pissed off every time you stamp you stamp Aiyuk's check. I get it. But you could wait a year. His value is going to go up quite a bit. I know you owe him that money, but hell, you're not paying anybody anymore anyway, except for, well, dead cap guys who aren't on your team, I guess. But I would wait a year, but I get the sense, like you said, because there's so much smoke around it, and I've always been a person to say I don't think they're going to trade him. But all of a sudden, you hear so much and so much and so much. But the thing that I just don't understand is, like you said, it's probably going to be a conditional. It'll be like a fourth-round pick that can become a third for a guy that you've spent a first on and put all this time and effort into, re-sign the money, and now you're going to trade him for like a fourth-round pick just so you don't have to pay a $20 million bonus when you have plenty of money. This is just a reset type of. I understand why they're doing it, but to do that at such low value for Aiyuk, that screams personal to me. That I'm pissed off that I got pushed against the wall on this contract, and it becomes personal. And once owners start doing that stuff, that's not good. That's what Al Davis did. I'm going to sit Marcus Allen all season long because it's personal, and that's not good.
I hear you. So Arizona wide receiver and projected top 10 pick Tedarro McMillan had his pro day today in Tucson, and the scouts in attendance clocked him at 4.48 in the 40.
That's not great.
He's 6'4". He's 219 pounds. First team All-American. 24 NFL teams were in attendance to watch him. 4.48 is not great, but there were a lot of people that said that he was training. You know, this is why you always got to be careful of what you hear. This lying season. There were people that were saying 3 weeks ago that he was running sub 4.4 in workouts. And the fact that he ran 4.48 means that that's a lie, well, unless he's injured. But should the Niners consider drafting Tedarro McMillan at 11 now that you know what his full profile is? He's 6'4", 219 pounds, and he runs 4.48. Great player for Arizona. He was Jacob Cowing's teammate there.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they are going to move,
aren't they trying to get away from that? I mean, if you trade Aiyuk and you trade Debo, aren't you saying, and this is what I think the rest of the league is saying, by moving a lot of these receivers and moving off a lot of these big receiver contracts they gave away a year ago, you got to win in the trenches. You're winning on the inside, not the outside. And I know you need good receivers, but if you let Aiyuk go for low value and you traded Debo Samuel because you don't feel like you're going to you don't want your money distributed that way, then why are you taking the 11th pick when you need so much along your lines? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I know. No.
And even though I think that obviously the receiver group isn't as good as it was a year ago, you just traded just under the assumption of what we were just talking about. If you trade Aiyuk and you trade Debo, but you take the 11th pick and you take a receiver, then why don't you just keep one of your receivers you already had? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, unless you think, Aiyuk is, here's the reality that in my mind, I think both the Niner receivers are kind of cooked. I mean, Debo, I think, is an old 28. I think he's more like 32 in real years because he runs through people. And I think Aiyuk, I mean, we'd be naive. I mean, the guy had a devastating knee injury. I would say it's crazy talk to think that he's not diminished. And then if he's diminished, then he's not as good as he was. I don't know. To me, if I could move off with both those receivers, would I? Yes. And I think they can at a price, and I think they will. We'll find out soon enough. I think it will happen before the end of the month. There's just a lot of smoke about it. John Lynch easily could have put this to bed at the combine and just been like, no, or he could have just said, hey, look, he's an expensive player, but he's our player and he ain't going anywhere. but he didn't say that. So it makes me think that he is going somewhere. This is kind of interesting. Dave Lombardi had this on his Twitter the other day. 4 pillars of struggle from the Niners in 2024. Which is the worst? What was the number one issue between these 4 issues? These issues, the Niners ranked between 29 and 32. 32 is dead last. Their run defense EPA was 29th. Their short yardage run efficiency was 31st. Their average separation, and this is talking about their receivers gaining separation on opposing defensive backs, was dead last, 32nd. And their special teams EPA was dead last, 32nd. Which is the biggest problem for the 49ers? Their special teams, their lack of separation, their lack of ability to run the ball in short yardage or on the goal line, or their run defense?
Well, to me,
I mean, these are major areas.
Well, easily it's their run defense, but what they thought it was their special teams because they've signed 32 special teams players in the offseason, including one today. So clearly they think that of that group that it's special teams. And the irony of the whole thing is the number one special teams guy they need to replace, they've kept, which is the kicker. But
Right.
they've signed, seriously, they've signed like 5 special teams guys this offseason, and they've kept the kicker. So that's weird. I mean, they even replaced Tabor Pepper. It's like, what the hell? I mean, like Tabor Pepper wasn't making anything. He was fine. Like, I don't care. Anybody associated with special teams, we're keeping, except for the guy that we took in the 3rd round because we don't have egg on our face. But we'd rather have him continue to miss kicks or something. But anyway, yeah, I think the run defense. What do you think? Just not the short yardage. I'm saying the run defense. And the thing about the short yardage, by the way, is, and I did this whole thing on Juice. Maybe you believe Pro Football Focus, maybe you don't. But because he touches the ball so little, and by the way, he played in 49% of the snaps, he only had 48 pass rush blocks. So in other words, he was in the game where he didn't run a route only 48 times. So he doesn't touch the ball, doesn't carry it 5 times, doesn't catch it 19 times, doesn't pass block. His run block grade is 69, which is wonderful in some context, but as a run blocker, that's below average. And they brought him back. Like you said, okay, you're terrible in short yardage. Okay, our center is still here. We have no guard. Our fullback is not a blasting fullback. By the way, the guy that they signed from Jacksonville that's what he does. So they're redundant at that position. And between those two, they made $10 million. They make $10 million this year, and Greenlaw cost him 11. So that was a brilliant move. Great money well spent.
Well, not only that, and now go ahead.
I'm just talking like short term. I'm just talking in the short yardage. So, okay, you overdid it on special teams. You're going to try to correct that. I understand that. They're going to go back to running the football, against the run. They're going to get pluggers inside instead of like star defensive tackles. They're just going to go plugger to try to help that. But their the short yardage thing is they're thinking Christian McCaffrey is going to solve everything, and they're going to bring Brendel back. And I don't know what they're going to do at guard. I think they'll fix it. But that's why Juszczyk to me makes 0 sense. They brought in a guy in Luke Farrell who's actually a really good blocking tight end, and you'd movement. 26 of the 32 teams use a move tight end to do what Kyle Juszczyk does. But they bring back Kyle Juszczyk, who doesn't do anything well. Right? And I shouldn't say that. They don't utilize him. But in terms of the things they ask him to do, which is basically run block, that's all basically they ask him to do, he's below average in that. And then they scratch their head and they go, well, why are we bad in short yardage?
Yeah,
you need somebody to hammer through the hole so that your back can get through there.
Yeah, I mean, Juice is not moving anybody in the run game, but Brendel's not either. And Banks got outquicked this year. So they definitely, to me, it's short yardage running because you're Kyle Shanahan. You're an offensive coach. Your game, your entire system is based on your ability to have success running and then play action pass off of that success running. And so if you can't run the ball inside the 5-yard line, you're too limited. And in a sport where Philly can run it inside the 5,
I was just going to say
run it inside the 5. Buffalo
look who won the Super Bowl.
Philly, Kansas City can run it inside the 5. Everybody can run it inside the 5. If you have to beat, and you can't. Right. And that's the difference. Has to end. That can't continue.
When you look at Philly, and a lot of it is the push, but still, if Philly's got a 3rd and 2, they're going to run the tush push twice. They're getting a first down. And if they don't, then they have Saquon Barkley and they have a hammer of an offensive line. So, and by the way, not that I think Mekhi Becton would have solved anything or everything, but he got 2-20 or something like that with the Chargers. Yeah. That's the kind of deal where you're like, look, it slips through the cracks. I don't know that he has the foot speed. That's probably what it is because he's so big, but he probably doesn't have the foot speed to be in this offense. But still, you got to take a look at that. I mean, 2-20 is nothing. And this guy was a key cog on the offensive line that won a Super Bowl. I scratch my head in these situations, man, and go, are you sure he wouldn't have worked in this system? Are we 100% sure he couldn't move well enough to be in this system? Because the Chargers just gave him 2-20. And I know Jim Harbaugh knows how to run the ball.
This guy's a horse. Oh. This guy's an absolute moose. By the way, tonight's live stream sponsored by Mancini Sleep World. Mancini's is a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. They offer a 120-night guarantee with a range of brands and price points. With Mancini's, you get free next-day delivery. Click the link below or go to sleepworld.com and find a bed that works for you. Whether you shop online or visit in-store, use the code KRUG10. KRUEG 10, and you'll get 10% off. Again, that's Krug 10 and get 10% off in any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. And we're also want to thank our spring training month of March sponsors, Claw-Daddy Arcades. He's a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades. Check out Claw-Daddy Arcades on Instagram for a Claw-Daddy arcade near you. And also, the show is sponsored by LearnKeys Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. That's right. Whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity, marketing, or another high-demand field, they offer over 30 different certification programs to help you take your next step in your professional career. They've been in business for 37 years, over 200,000 students, and they place over 100 students every month in well-paying jobs. So LearnKeys Upskill Academy. The links are in the description for all of our sponsors, and thanks to all of them for being sponsors of the Krug Show. All right, John, the 11th pick comes up, and you're on the board. You're the 49ers. Who do you want to see there, and who, if they were there, would you just run that card up to the front?
One of the key offensive tackles. There's a couple of them, and I think that's the direction they would go because they're there. I think there's a lot of defensive tackles, so that was originally going to be. Or if there was somebody who had slid, I don't think Carter's not going to slide. Somebody like that's not going to slide. Will Campbell. I think if Will Campbell somehow slid to 11, I don't think he will, but one of those offensive tackles, Membu, the kid out of Missouri, if he slid to 11, because like I said, I think they're going to go right. I think they're going to solve two things there. I think they're going to go right tackle, which eventually can move to left tackle. And I think they like McKivitz better at guard than tackle. And I think he would move into the left guard spot. So then the offensive line is set. And now the rest of the draft, you can just go defense, 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 running back, defense, 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 wide receiver, defense, 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 something like that.
Yeah.
What do you think? What would you do? What would you do to 11?
I think Membu is hard to pass. I mean, just 6'4",
like
330.
That's the guy you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's just such a monster. Just such a monster. He's such a road grader. I think Membu would be really hard to pass. But to me, there's a short list of debatable players here. Membu would be one. Okay, that's definitely one. Another one would definitely be Kenneth Grant from Michigan, just because of his ability as a defensive tackle.
Because he's different too. These other guys that we're talking about, they're really, really good. I like Walter Nolan and guys like that, but they're about the same kind of guy. Your 290 to 300-pound tackle. Whereas you said with Grant, you're talking about a guy who's going to stuff the run. And the last couple of years, they really, you just brought up the number. They really need that.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, I mean, he's just such a beast as far as he's such a big body up front, and they need that. I mean, they absolutely need that. They need that big body up front to absorb, bodies and keep guys off their second-level players because it's just there's a lot of great second-level players, but they're all smaller players. So Kenneth Grant, Membu, I think I'm probably going one or the other there. I guess I could be convinced on Walter Nolan just because he was a 5-star player in high school. He was great at A&M. He was great at Ole Miss. And, Greg Cosell, who I really do respect quite a bit, is comparing him to Jalen Carter. That's a pretty lofty comparison right there. So I would say it's probably one of those three. Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, or Membu. I think you got to go big body. I think you got to go big bodied guy. I mean,
yep. Get back to the trenches. I
mean, I love Jahdae Barron from Texas, the corner. I think he's fantastic. But they're just not in that position right now. I mean, there's you've got to make an impact on your front line on both sides of the ball. It's imperative that they do that. All right, that's going to do it for us. John, tell us when you're going live in the morning? What time?
Yeah,
when
I'm always
next
live.
Going live. Tell people if they are not a member of the John Lund Experience yet. Tell them how and where and when and why and all that.
Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. I do a Saturday, 10 a.m. John Lund Unleashed. Make sure that you check that out. JohnLundUnleashed.com is the website, and then we're live. YouTube and all the places you're live. I do them in the morning, mostly in the morning. So 8 a.m. So I got to sleep fast. But you know what? I don't need much sleep, man.
Couple of supers before we're out of here. Ray Pest. Another for $1 there for Ray Pest. Bay Area E. All I ask for this year is no heartbreaks again. Steve Cass, 99 cents. Chica Dusty, $1. See,
now people are giving you the weird number because we brought it up. That's what happened.
Yeah. They're complimenting one another.
What's going on now?
Green Glass Full says here's a deuce. Burgers and fries for only 99 cents from the fridge. That's awesome. There we go. Green Glass Full.
Outstanding.
And Chico and Steve Cass. All right. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to all of you. Have a great night. Back tomorrow for more Niners Nightly on KNBR at 6. Tomorrow we'll also be doing some videos. Actually, tomorrow there'll be no Niners Nightly. We get Giants and A's on the radio. So no Niners Nightly tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow night streaming with the great Raj from RSF 49ers. So check that out. Go over to John's channel, hit like and subscribe here, hit like and subscribe over there. Support him, help him build up his channel as fast as he possibly can. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to everybody in the chat. If we didn't get to your chat for whatever reason, we apologize. We'll hopefully get to it next time. And that's going to do it for us. Thanks to everybody. Peace.